The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Thanks, Nighthawk. Did you know, everyone? You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio and the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for free. How much do they cost, Mackey?
Nothing!
There you go. Nothing. Completely free. And it's fantastic because you can download any host's shows in MP3 format after you're logged in, but the login is shown to you on the screen, and you can do it for free and binge them in your own time. I know people want to do that because a consortium decided to name a streaming service Binge. It's got to be a thing. I think it tested well. So you also, while you're at the station's website, which is revolution.radio, you need to get yourself some great merch. All the artwork's done by A Mad Painter. He's one of the hosts. He's one of the first hosts on the channel. So do that. It's there. Maybe a t-shirt, a mug, or anything you like. I'm going to say also thank you for listening to Revolution Radio. Radio. We are talking about today, this is David Mackey, Shiny Side Out, second hour. We are talking about the parasitic system, fiat currency, and fractional reserve lending, part 9. And this is show number 641.
641, 140 and 600. That's right. It's a lot of shows. Now, I know we are at the World Central Bank.
That's
but
correct.
I would like to start us off at Fort Knox again, simply because I want people to understand where we are with Fort Knox, because people still think Fort Knox is a thing. So do you want to do Fort Knox, or
no?
Should we play it?
Go ahead.
All right.
Your time starts now.
In 1933, new President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed a bill forcing all the American people to hand over all their gold at base rate, with the exception of rare coins for collectors, of course. He disowned himself from the bill, claiming to not have read it, and his Secretary of the Treasury claimed this was what the experts wanted. None of these bills are ever read by anyone. That's the thing, right? Bought at bargain basement price with money produced from nothing by the Federal Reserve, the gold was melted down and stacked in the newly built bullion depository called Fort Knox. Once collected, in 1935, the price of gold was raised from $20.66 up to $35 per ounce. It's a troy ounce, I should think. But only non-American gold qualified to be sold. This meant those who had avoided the crash by investing in gold they had shipped to London, for example, could now nearly double their money, while the rest of America starved. So if you had shipped your gold out of America, so anybody who knew this bill was coming, for example, you could make a nice, hefty profit if you were to sell your gold. By the end of World War II, Fort Knox did hold 70% of the world's gold. But over the years, it was sold off to European money changers, while a public audit of Fort Knox reserves was repeatedly denied. And sorry, what were the Germans told when they wanted to see it, Dave?
Look, we can show you some gold, and then the Germans replied, "Can we see our gold?" No. No, we'll show you some gold we have, but it may not be yours.
Bug off! What? Rumors spread about missing gold. And this is what Edith Roosevelt said, the wife of Franklin Delano, of course, here. Allegations of missing gold from our Fort Knox vaults are being widely discussed in European circles. But what is puzzling is that the administration is not hastening to demonstrate conclusively that there's no cause for concern over our gold treasure, if indeed it is in a position to do so. Finally, in 1981, President Ronald Reagan was convinced to have a look into Fort Knox with a view to reintroducing the gold standard. He appointed a group called the Gold Commission. They found that the U.S. Treasury owned no gold at all. All the Fort Knox gold remaining is now being held as collateral by the Federal Reserve against the national debt, using credits made from nothing. The Fed had robbed the largest treasure of gold on earth. And the reason I wanted to start with this, Dave, is now I want to spend a couple of moments just ingesting this. Who stole the gold? What for? And where did they put it? Is what I want. Because gold truly is a rare commodity on this planet, right? And we had many shows now, not recently, where we talked about monatomic gold. I know, what? Now you blow my mind. It's so long ago now. But we did talk about ORME, or orbitally rearranged monatomic elements. And essentially, gold, or any really elements of the platinum group, including platinum and gold, can be turned into orbitally rearranged monatomic elements. So, you change the molecular structure, and it can be ingested at that point. It can also be used in agriculture to help you with your crop. It becomes a white powder, in essence. A white powder that, as you, heat it, if you, or put energy into it, changes gravitational behavior as well. It's a very odd substance, ORME. And now, the largest gold treasure pretty much ever assembled has disappeared, Dave. Where to? And like I said, for what purpose? Is this the mufkat we've been told about? Is this the
mufkat? Yep, that's right.
Yeah, the gold of the food of the gods that allows them to live forever. There were some rumors and studies done, if I recall correctly, that talked about monatomic gold's ability to protect telomeres in the absence of telomerase. So it could certainly aid in longevity.
There was a whole bunch of things that it did, and the other one was it could phase in and out of this reality.
Yeah.
And it synchronized your hemispheres of your brain.
Yeah.
And it is a cumulative experience. So the more you have, the more effect it has on you. It's just something else. And then the monatomic gold was being baked into bread and given to the pharaohs.
Yep.
And
so
yeah.
It's a thing, right, Dave? So clearly there was a lot of planning put into acquiring all this gold, right? And even more so in then making it disappear, one would think. Because it's not like gold is heavy. It's really, really heavy. And it's not easily transported, especially in those kinds of quantities. So someone really did a number on the American people, all of us. But yeah, so just wanted to raise that, because it is all connected, everybody. Everything is always connected.
There was also a rumor that there was gold being stored at the bottom of the World Trade Center.
Correct.
And it wasn't there when they removed all the rubble.
No, you're right. There was a branch of the Federal Reserve in the World Trade Center, and that gold was apparently similar to the movie Die Hard 2 or Die Hard 3. I can't remember, where they're robbing the banks with dump trucks. It's similar to that. Enormous amounts of gold that were
That's pretty
stolen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it was pretty good. The movie, I mean. Now, World War II, and then we were caught up to where we left off last week. 1939, of course, to 1945. World War II saw the U.S. debt, U.S. only, increased by 598%, while Japan's debt went up by 1,348%, with France up by 583%, and Canada up by 417%. And let's not even talk about Germany. With the hot war over, the Cold War began, the arms race causing more and more borrowing. Now the money changers could really concentrate on global domination. Step 1, European Monetary Union and NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement that you might be familiar with. Step 2, standardize the global economy via the World Bank, the IMF, and GET, which is now, of course, called the WTO. Dave?
Yes, so we're on to the World Central Bank 1948 to present. In Washington, the headquarters of both the World Bank and the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, face each other on the same street. What are these organizations and who controls them? To find out, we need to look back to just after World War I. At this point, the money changers were attempting to consolidate the banks under the guise of peacemaking. Ah, that old classic. To stop future wars, they put forward the formation of a world central bank named the Bank of International Settlements, a world court called the World Court in The Hague, and a world executive for legislation called the League of Nations. Now, just... Okay, so not everyone listens, not all of the countries in the world listen to the outcomes of the World Court in The Hague, and we'll discover what happened in the League of Nations. I thought that was a superhero thing, but I'll be quiet. In his book titled, there was a 1966 book entitled Tragedy and Hope, President Clinton's mentor Carroll Quigley writes about this, and it's a long quote, so listen for when I finish by saying unquote. Quote, "The powers of financial capitalism had a far-reaching plan, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. This system was to be controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world acting in concert, by secret agreements arrived at in frequent meetings and conferences. The apex of the system was to be the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, a private bank owned and controlled by the world's central banks, which were themselves private corporations." I'll get to a comment at the end. "Each central bank sought to dominate its government by its ability to control treasury loans, to manipulate foreign exchanges, to influence the level of economic activity in the country, and to influence cooperative politicians by subsequent economic rewards in the business world." Unquote. Okay, that's Carroll Quigley, Professor, Georgetown University. Now, Maggie, I'm just going to reiterate here, at the top of the first hour of the show, in our news, I mentioned that the central banks themselves collude by secret agreements arrived at in frequent meetings and conferences. I said that. That's what the head of our central bank said. It's like, oops, I said the things I was meant to only be thinking. Because that's exactly what our representative of our federal bank confessed to. That this system was to be controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world acting in concert, which she said, by secret agreements and arrived at in that which she agreed to at a frequent meeting and conferences. And yes, she said that exact phrase, 100%, just in her way.
When something is the truth, it just is, right?
That's, yeah. Well, there's no going back now. It's out there, and to the people. But no one asked a backup question. a follow-up question. No one asked a secondary question. You what? You colluded with all the other banks to keep the interest rates high? For what purpose? So firstly, you would have to get admission, and then for what purpose? Oh, to make the economy better? No. Now the truth, right? With a magic lasso. To force you all into servitude so you'll beg for the universal basic income when it's time. Right.
Can I have some more, please, sir? Can I have some more?
More. All right. So they got 2 out of 3. The League of Nations failed, largely owing to the suspicions of the people, and while opposition concentrated on this, the other 2 proposals snuck their way through. It would take another war to wear the public resistance down. Wall Street invested heavily to rebuild Germany, and as the Chase Bank had propped up the Russian Revolution. Now the Chase merged with the Warburg's Manhattan Bank to form the Chase Manhattan, which would later merge with the Chemical Bank to become the largest bank on Wall Street. In 1944, the US approved its full participation in the IMF and the World Bank. By 1945, the Second League of Nations was approved under the new name, the United Nations. The war had dissolved all opposition. The methods used in the National Banking Act of 1864 and the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 were now simply used on a global scale. The Federal Reserve Act allowing the creation of Federal Reserve notes is mirrored by the IMF's authority to produce money called Special Drawing Rights, SDRs. It is estimated the IMF has produced $30 billion worth of SDRs so far. In the United States, SDRs are already accepted as legal money, and all other member nations are being pressured to follow suit. With SDRs being particularly backed by gold, or partially backed by gold, a world gold standard is sneaking its way in through the back door, which comes with no objection from the money changers who now hold 2/3 of the world's gold and can use this to structure the world's economy to their further advantage. Meki.
We've gone from the goldsmith's fraud being reproduced on a national scale through the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve to a global level with the IMF and the World Bank. Unless we together stop giving these exchange units their power by our collective faith in them, the future will probably see the Intergalactic Bank and the Federation of Planets Reserve set up in much the same way. And I would not
I
doubt
don't
this in the
disagree with
least.
that statement.
This radical transfer of power has taken place with absolutely no mandate from the people. Let me just make you understand what this means. No one has come to us and said, the people at large that is, oh, well, what kind of economic system would you like? Would you like this economic system, where, you give us all of your deposits, which are no longer used once you give them to us, by the way, and we give you, minimal interest, as much as we get away with, and then whatever little interest we give you will be completely eliminated by all the fees we will charge you. And then if you borrow money from us or use a credit card, which we much prefer, we will charge you exorbitant interest rates, and we will lock you in for a very long time, and it'll be indexed against you. And if you can't pay, then your house becomes ours. Is that the system you all like? All those in favor?
Say aye. Those
Say
against?
No, I think the ayes have it.
Nay. Nay. Is there a horse in the room? Meki, you're right. So no one was asked the question, because I think the answer would have been, rather than their description of the way we were all going to be treated, I think, can we just make it like a collective so we all profit from it? And since we all profit from it, then it's in our best interest to keep it going. Because the way that you've described it, to be honest with you, I'm just going to be honest, and they've taken out a little red pen and cross out your name on the list. You're not going to get anything in the future. Is your system only seems to benefit, I don't know, you?
What?
What?
No.
He's
no,
onto his. He starts talking.
Down.
He starts talking to his lapel. He's onto his.
Trickle down economics, Dave. It's all good.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
You can have the crumbs from my table. Yeah, they're plenty.
Calling this kind of corruption some kind of pretty name like that, I don't think it changes it.
But you know what is even more astounding?
It sounds like when Bubba wants to spoon you in prison.
You can say no. Really? No.
No.
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
But you know the thing that blows me away. Well, look, I understand, greed and selfishness. Okay, I get it. But what blows me away is that wasn't enough, Dave.
No,
it was not enough. The level of greed that we cultivated as a society in those specialized roles of banking and stock exchange, etc., couldn't be satisfied with even that. No, we need to do more. So they went on and bankrupted, which is something that is really astounding if you think about it. They bankrupted the American real estate sector and foreclosed millions of homes. And
where was the central bank, Becky? Where was the central bank when those banks were going to fail and ruin the money system entirely?
Yeah, no.
They stood back. Hey, that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. Talk to the government. They got heaps of money, right?
There you go. Right, there you go.
And so the government borrowed money from the central bank to pay for them because it wasn't. They didn't have the money in their pockets, right? It wasn't like a lazy $1 trillion that they had sitting around. They had to borrow off the central bank to be able to pay it, which benefits the central bank. And what about this global level bank, right?
Oh yeah.
Where were they?
Oh,
they've got their popcorn out, is what they've got.
Oh, look, it is actually astounding that we let it come to this. Well, not really, I guess, because once you start, because this has gone on for generations now. This is not a yesterday problem and a yesterday fraud. This has gone on for hundreds of years, and these people think in long terms here. Right? These are dynastic fraudulent.
I was going to say that, and that's why Meki and I have that thought that it is dynastical.
Yeah,
that there are people that live 700 years still alive on the planet who have designed all this to be the top.
100%. I would say even older than that. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And the thing is this, right? And I told you guys I recently watched or rewatched the movie The Big Short, which is classified to my great anger as a comedy. It is. And Steve Carell, he plays a banker, I guess you would call him, but he's fed up with the system. He hates the system, right? And he's really conflicted, and he probably was in real life as well, as to whether or not he should sell all his short positions. Because he bet against the banks and against the real estate market, right? Because he saw it coming with others, and he's really conflicted. And in the end, he sells. But there's this one line that's stuck in my mind. And this was after Bernanke had left the White House and they hammered out a bailout deal for the big banks, right? And he's talking to his colleagues and friends, and he says, the banks weren't stupid or greedy. They just didn't care. They knew they're going to be bailed out. They knew they would get away with it. And they did. They did. This wasn't a case of stupidity or short-sightedness or just pure greed.
It's calculated greed.
Yeah. The system is set up in such a way now that they can do things like that and completely get away with it and get you and me to pay for it. It makes me so angry. I have no words to express this anger.
I'm gonna. Oh, sorry, Mickey. Go ahead.
No.
I'm going to say that the government is spending money like it's a housemate that you live with that has a credit card and it's with no limit. But that will eventually come around and bite them. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, it'll bite you.
It won't bite them. That's right. It'll bite me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that housemate that eats out of your fridge, never does any grocery shopping, doesn't cook, doesn't clean, uses your credit card, and then disappears when it's time to pay the bill. Where's Bob? Is Bob? No, he moved out yesterday, Dave. What?
I shared for 20 plus years, and yes, we had those people. Yeah.
Yeah, he had all the Bobs. Now, to get back to the text, okay, so we have this radical transfer of power has taken place with absolute no mandate from the people. That's where we were. Okay, like I said, no one asked us. Nations borrow special drawing right from the International Monetary Fund in order to pay interest on their mounting debts. With these special drawing rights produced at no cost, the IMF charges more interest.
Let's go.
This, contrary to bold claims, does not alleviate poverty or further any development. This is important, this is maybe the most important thing we're going to say here. It just creates a steady flow of wealth from borrowing nations to the money changers who now control the IMF and the World Bank. The wealth goes from nations to money changers, or the money men, the money people. The permanent debt of third world countries is constantly being increased to provide temporary relief from the poverty being caused by previous borrowing, rather than cancelling debt. That would make sense. Let's cancel the debt. Yeah, let's cancel the debt.
No, you can have some more money. It'll be better for a while.
Oh, that's much better. Yeah, I'll buy a Rolls Royce, gold plated
toilets,
ashtrays. Yeah, toilets for sure. These repayments already exceed the amount of new loans. By 1992. Africa's debt had reached $290 billion, which is 2.5 times greater than it was in 1980. A noble attempt to repay it had caused increased infant mortality and unemployment, plus deteriorating schools and general health and welfare problems. As world resources continue to be sucked into this insatiable black hole of greed, I love that sentence, if allowed to continue, the entire world will face a similar fate. As one prominent Brazilian politician, Luiz Inácio Silva, put it, and this is a quote, "Without being radical or overly bold, I will tell you that the Third World War has already started. A silent war, not for that reason any less sinister. This war is tearing down Brazil, Latin America, and practically all the Third World. Instead of soldiers dying, there are children. Instead of millions of wounded, there are millions of unemployed. Instead of destruction of bridges, there is the tearing down of factories, schools, hospitals, and entire economies. It is a war by the United States against the Latin American continent and the Third World at large. It is a war over the foreign debt, one which has its main weapon interest, a weapon more deadly than the atom bomb, more shattering than a laser beam. I urge you to read Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You read any of the versions, get the most updated one if you can. Read it, please. Understand what's going on. If a group or organization had used its hard-earned money to help these developing nations, then we might sympathize that there should be a real effort to repay these loans. But the money used was created from fractional reserve banking. The money loaned to the Third World came from the 90% the banks allow themselves to loan on the 10% they actually held. It didn't exist. It was created from nothing. And now people are suffering and dying in an effort to pay it back. The biggest crime, the magnitude is mind-boggling, is that they created this wealth out of thin air. This magic trick. See, and this is why I think, this is why we've presented this in a way that we believe there may be entities that have been with us for a long time, and there are definitely dynasties that are ruling and planning. They think in terms of centuries, if
Yeah.
not millennia. And it had to take a long time to set it up just right, because you can't force it on people, like in one go. It takes a build up, and people might argue, oh well, that's just how humans develop. It's just what happens, etc., etc. Right? Well, let me put it this way: no, it's not, and I tell you why. Mormons, as an example. There are many other examples, but let's look at the Mormons. Do you know what Mormons do when they want to build a barn or build a house?
Mormons?
This is what they do. They get their buddies together, right? They all get together and they build the house. The women would go and cook the food or whatever, and help with what they can. The men
so not
would
Amish.
Both Amish and Mormons do the same.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they do the same. Probably you're right. The Amish more than the Mormons, but the Mormons do something very similar, right? And then also the Mennonites. So I'm talking about, I guess, fringe religious groups that are, very fundamentalist in their views, but they don't go to banks necessarily. They just build on their land, get everybody together as a community. There is a different way of life out there, everybody. The way of life that we have embraced, that we have been forced to embrace, is not the only way of life. In what we call the primitive people, communities get together and do what is necessary for the community. They build housing, they build schools, they do all the necessary work that is required for the civilization to flourish, right? And the Amish and the Mennonites and the Mormons are an example of another way. There is another way. Islamic banks are not allowed to charge interest. Did you know that? They're not. In fact, if you're really a Christian, then usury is also against the will of God, if you will. You should not charge interest on any monies. It's usury. It's sinful. You can't do it. And yet here we are doing it, right? So it is really just this belief, Dave, I think, that this is the only way to live. It isn't. And the other way of living is not communism and tyranny. It isn't. We could work together in communities and make the communities work. In fact, the way we were designed as people, we're designed to work together. We have a group mentality that is very strong. What's happening right now, this unnatural state of existence with debt, and the third, look, I've said it from the start, the third world is still paying down the debt that we gave it.
Yeah.
We went out there in the West and we pillaged and we raped and we plundered, right, in the West, Africa, Latin America, North America, large parts of Asia, Australia. The West, the Europeans went and exploited the resources, brought it all back to Europe, lived the high life, funded empires, while the rest of the world is sliding into abject poverty. That's where we are.
Yeah, that sounds right. But we're not the first to have done it, and we're not the last to have done it to the third world countries.
No, absolutely.
Every other entity on the planet has gone to the third world countries to try and assist them in their living. And is it going well for them? No. It's not. So it doesn't bode well. The whole system doesn't bode well, and it's designed to create conflict. It isn't designed for us to all live in harmony and sing Kumbaya. If we were, and I know I've used this example before, but if we were all people at a car boot sale, yeah? We had a stall each, and there was, entertainment, people could come and have a look, and it was all fun. The world is happy. We've got some things to trade with people, but, people come by and swing by and want some of the things we make, right? And there's some stalls that don't sell anything, and I get that. And some don't make their own stuff. in some stalls, like Greece, you just go there to enjoy the company at the store. They don't export anything. Yeah, not of any, value to the planet. Just come and enjoy our world. And in a dystopian future, that is one of those places where the rich hang out. Not in Greece specifically, but there is a place in our imagination in the future where those persons of extraordinary wealth, well above the people who serve them, well above the place they're at, they go and enjoy those locations happily and enjoy the division between them and the servants. It doesn't matter. The servants are almost, if they could be robots, they'd be robots. They don't care. And the sad thing is, while being a Gen Xer, growing up in the world, having the vision taught to me that if you try really hard and work hard, earn money, you can have a house, you can have 2.3 children, yeah, you can have a 1/4 acre block, white picket fence, a car each. You can do all those things. You should well be able to pay your bills, pay the taxes and pay the rates and have your water connected. You should be able to have all of those things and be happy. You should be happy. When you get those, that's your goal, because you'll be happy then. Working up to it, yeah, it'll be tough slog, but we don't talk about the hard work and how that makes you feel. But then when you realize the whole thing isn't what it is, it's unobtainable for a lot of people. That not everyone will have the house. They'll rent someone else's property, or live in a flat or an apartment. And share, because even the apartment cost is too expensive. So you need a 2 or 3, maybe 4 bedroom apartment, and everyone has to chip in for it to be of reasonable cost in a good location, to be close enough to where you're earning money, yeah, you're servicing your rent. That is such a challenge today. That's why, Meki, when I think about it, I think going back to America in the 50s would have been awesome, because the wages were a lot closer to a good standard of living, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I think at the moment we've now priced it out of the reach of a lot of people, and you know what? The governments aren't doing enough to try to repair it. They're, like us, under the control of the system, this parasitic system.
They don't understand it. The problem, Dave, fundamentally is that a lot of people just don't understand what it is we're facing, right? Like, how can I put this best? We're born into this world. This is the way of life. We all know, and here we are. Just and we all now try to find our way around and do our thing and just do the best we can in this world, never questioning why we live this way. And nobody really understands how it hangs together. I mean, they make it deliberately complex.
Yeah,
it is really easy. It's not complex. Economics is really easy. But it is complicated by people. So economics, let's be very clear here, is not a science. Economics is a social science because it deals with behavior of people. Okay, it's not physics, it's not chemistry, it's not biology. Yeah, it's more akin to history, if you will, or philosophy even. Economics is not a hard science, and a lot of economic theory is complete nonsense. It just is. It is valid in certain frames of reference for certain periods of time, yes, right? Greenspan said, well, I guess I've been wrong all my life.
Yeah.
Okay? And he's not the only one. And economic systems change. So economic systems are not natural laws. They are the way we interact with each other, the way we choose to interact with each other. And now, right now, we are at the bottom of the biggest fraud that I know of, at least, in human history. This is the biggest fraud in human history. It's the biggest scheme. Forget racketeering, forget mafia, forget all of that, forget it. Amateurs, the Borgias, amateurs. Medicis, amateurs. Okay? What we are living under is the greatest abomination of a system designed allegedly to make our lives easier and to allow for economic activity to occur. It is the opposite. It stifles and strangles economic activity and fills the coffers of the few. That's what it's designed to do. That's what it is. Right? Without a single act of violence, Dave.
Yeah.
That's the kicker here. This is not a conquering army going around marauding and entering treasuries into their own coffers. That's not what this is. It is, but there's no violence here.
No.
You know, I mean, like there's no, you know, like there's no armies marching in and doing things. I mean, it's part of the program at large, but ultimately, these are just transactions. And you know, whenever in a movie or even in a book or in a narrative, maybe even in real life, people always say, "Oh, it was never personal. It was always just business." You know, when someone kills someone someone messes with a mob or whatever, it wasn't personal. Kid. Like that makes it okay. Like it doesn't make it okay.
No, you still did the thing.
I don't care if it's personal or not personal. You screw with me in this way. It's the same, right? Same outcome.
I like when the father. This is in Meki. It's in John Wick when I think number 2 or something or number I don't know whichever one when the son kills the dog. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And the father goes, "Well, you're the idiot. I've seen him kill a man with a pencil, right? Good luck with that."
Yeah.
That is the position, I think, Meki. I'm agreeing with you. It does. There's a little section at the end, Meki. If you wanted to scroll past and have a look to see about anything else that we might be able to talk about, but there isn't a solution, and I think that even the WEF and its Great Reset plan has avoided telling the central banking system of the planet that they stand to lose a whole bunch the moment that it doesn't matter if you type zeros into an account. You could just make someone instantly wealthy and it doesn't make a lick of difference to anybody else. The economy isn't ruined by giving someone in a digital currency a whole bunch of wealth. It's like winning the lotto. You could just appoint it. That's yours. You did good. And if you're not socially winning in point score in your being a happy little Vegemite in your relative country, then what is the role of the central banks anymore? If it's a digital currency, what is it? I think ultimately they lose. I think they become powerless.
Yeah.
Think about what would their actual role be? Because I don't see one.
The only thing is it's continuation of the facade. I mean, people are used to something. You can phase it out over time, right? But it won't have any practical functionality.
Yeah.
That's it. You phase it out, off we go. And after a while, where is it? Oh, well, then the question will be, okay, where is all this, where's this policy fault then? I mean, who does this work? I mean, they do something today, they create all of this stuff, right? And they do this and they work with the government, much to our chagrin, but they do. But tomorrow, that will all be automated, potentially. Someone will have override rights, I'm sure, but ultimately, no human intervention necessary, thank you very much. Just keep the system rolling. just keep rolling. And this is also the problem with AI now, right? Just keep the system going, because people have these visions of, AI is going to kill us all, blah, 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 whatever. You know what? Not necessarily worse, but what is an equally disturbing fate? If we are mollycoddled to not to death, but to extinction, where all decisions are taken away from humans.
Yeah.
Okay, you're living here, and this is what you can eat, and you can't smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hilarious. There's this movie, what's it called? Demolition Man.
Oh, yeah, I know. I like that one. Yep.
And this guy, Sylvester Stallone, plays a cop, and he's sort of frozen or suspended animation just for whatever, And then they wake him up because a killer of his time gets loose, and they wake him up, and he wakes up into an LA 50 or whatever years in the future, and everybody is androgynous muumuu wearing fatty. They all are. And you can't do anything. Nothing is not. You can't swear. You can't smoke. You can't eat meat. You can't do anything. Essentially, you're not allowed to do anything. It's a complete nanny state, 100% nanny state. And literally, you can't do anything. And that's what AI could be for us. We'll just I don't know, just be in chairs and wheelchairs all the time. Being carted around, cleaned on a regular basis. I guess
Hopefully.
Maybe we'll be in little pods where we play virtual games all day long. And really, there'll be no point to our existence at all, other than existence itself. There'll be no striving for the human race anymore. We won't explore. We're not increasing our knowledge. That's all taken away from us. All right. I mean, what's the difference between that and death? I don't know. I guess we'll enjoy ourselves still. I guess playing games and such. But like I said, the great endeavor that was the human race would come to a crashing end.
So in Sleeper, the movie, they address the same thing, where you do have an arbitrary role, either feeding tape into an overly complex machine around all of the pulleys. Yeah, that was what he's re-educated to do. But that was it. The arty people just hung out and had parties and did nothing else. They didn't contribute to anything. Their outputs were, if you wanted to say, if you judged a civilization by its art, which is clearly a level at which that I do that, because I think if you don't have any art, you're oppressed. And if you do have art, then there's an openness to your society. People are creative and blah, 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 do all these things. But the level of artistic quality output from this, in the movie Sleeper, was very poor. I mean, extremely poor. And it entertained themselves, which meant that their vision of what was good and what was bad was very low. And I see that as our future.
Yeah.
Universal basic income to an ever diminishing population through some kind of control mechanisms. Yeah. Maybe you've got to ask for permission to have a child. I don't know. Who knows? They have to be registered.
Yeah, and absolutely. Look, I think again, none of these visions are impossible anymore.
No,
we can't discount anything, unfortunately, because the world is heading into something that makes no sense to me anymore. In many ways, and we just let it happen.
20 years ago, impossible, right?
No,
never going to happen.
Yeah, but now it's almost inevitable to see the world in such bleak terms. It is a really, it's a different feel of world that we're in. I mean, we spoke about this, Dave, I know, and especially in the 90s, not just the 90s, but the 50s, the 60s, and then the 90s, there was this, the world was still a mess, don't get me wrong, but there was this optimism, this almost childlike approach to what could be achieved in your life, right? Like it seemed like you could you could achieve whatever you want really, if you put your mind to it, right? At least there was this vibe there. Like now, I don't get that anymore. People are now completely cynical and are no longer in the same frame of mind. I think maybe we've been beaten down too much. Maybe it's just too much that happened in between. 30 years have passed, and it's 9/11, 2008, and there've been wars and diseases, and it's just not getting better. It's not getting better. It's just getting worse and worse. We don't want to believe it, so we just buy more stuff that we don't need to make us feel better, right? It's not the answer.
There's actually, I've got to renew my Temu account. I'm only kidding.
There's more to come, everybody. We haven't reached the end of the show cycle yet. And next week we're going to talk about money creation, and it'll be an economist's view, which is a slightly abridged version of an article. By the way, the article we just shared with you was from www.xat.org, and that domain no longer exists.
Oh.
You can still find it on the Wayback Machine.
Yep.
But the actual link that we have here, because we link everything in our show notes through to where we took it from.
That's right.
It is no longer active. It's no longer an active website. I'm glad I got all the information when I could. But and there's an extensive bibliography here as well with references, which is really good. But yeah, that domain no longer exists.
I wonder if the author still exists.
Well, that's a good question, because the author is never. I can't find out who actually put this together. I don't know who the owners of the website are. I just don't know. I do have all the reference material, so I'm going to compile that myself as well. But it's not this kind of information. And there's nothing like it. I haven't found a breakdown of the history, I guess, of money, as it were.
Like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it. There's nothing like it out there. I haven't seen any books quite like this, which really show the depth of the influence that the bankers had and have, and the level of involvement they have and had in world history. Right. This is a phenomenal insight into what actually happened. None of it is made up, which is the scary bit. It's completely accurate in its way, and very few people understand just how the system hangs together. It just doesn't. We talk about this a lot, and Dave and I are fortunate that we have the time to do the research. Right, but this is information that they should teach you in school. It really is, because we think there's only one system that we can live under, which is the one we're under right now. It's not true. It's just not true. In many other ways, in many other forms of government and civilization and society that we could adopt. I'm not saying that's something out there that's perfect. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying there are things out there that would be more equitable, that would be more... Let's use that old word that everybody just laughs at now. Things would be more fair. Fair. Do we remember what that word means? Fair? In Australia, everybody was meant to have a fair go, Dave, remember?
Yeah.
A fair go. All that means is that no one is going to deliberately kick you in the backside to make you fail, right? Or hold you back, or keep you down, or whatever whatever the idiom is you want to use. A fair go. If you put in the work, then you get your reward. And when I came to Australia, that was true. When I came to Australia, houses were under $100,000, like three bedroom, good piece of land in the suburbs. And that represented maybe 2 or 3 times the average salary, something like that. 3 times, I'd call it.
Yeah.
And that made sense because you can actually pay it off.
Yeah.
Right? And you can still live a good life, have the weekend to yourself, the barbecue. In Australia, nobody worked on the weekend when I came to Australia. Nobody. But now it's gotten to the point where we have to legislate people's rights to not answer the phone when someone calls them from the office. The right to disconnect, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's right.
It's insane, Dave. What happened to Australia? I remember it because this was the land of weekend sport activities all day, right?
Yeah.
Barbecues, excuse me, or whatever your hobby was, whatever. I don't know, whatever. That's just died. That culture is dead. Well, dying.
How difficult is it at all to schedule anything with anybody for the weekend?
Oh,
I know.
It's almost impossible. And now, I mean, I'm looking at it now because once in a while you have to, because it's so slow, it's so gradual, you don't notice it, but you have to slow down and just look at it and think, hang on. And I bought into it. I bought into it hook, line, and sinker, Dave. I was working weekends, public holidays.
Yeah, because you had to get the job done. I was doing 60 plus hours a week. Oh, there's the music, Mickey.
Oh, jeez.
Look, Jeb has got a great show coming up next. You can catch Becky and I also in Plato's Cave at 7 a.m. Eastern American time for both Tuesday and Thursday, and otherwise again Sunday next week. In the meantime, be safe.